it about humiliation and irony that makes comedy, or at least that type of comedy, so interesting and funny? I was into stand-up comedy for a long time, and in some ways still am. I may even hit the open mics again here shortly. One of the things I found while touring the list of comedians I personally think are funny, usually East Coast comics, is their ability to not only call out their own flaws and awful behaviors, but also their ability to hound and bust on each other like no other. Patrice O'Neal, you are missed. Don't know what I'm talking about? Look up old Opie and Anthony radio clips and listen to them relentlessly make fun of their friends and enemies. I grew up with these comics from the 90s to the early 2000s. Some of them are still around and some of them still make me laugh. Before I met Christ, I wanted to be just like them. They were my idols. I wanted to be the guy with the quick lines and brilliant punches and tags, and because of this, I began to adopt that persona. Comedy became my life. I would hit up open mics occasionally, bust on my friends, and make them laugh. I wanted to be original, compelling, and new. I didn't care if you didn't like me. That was just another opportunity for me to completely destroy you with my words. Eventually, I got into drugs and was able to write even better and tell jokes that would make my friends crack up, which would lead them to ask how I would come up with these things. I was getting what I wanted, and abundantly so. Life was great, and I was pursuing, badly mind you, what I wanted to do. However, for some reason, getting what I wanted fractured me from the inside out. I started seeing myself as the biggest insult to comedy and the biggest phony in life. Some of those feelings are still with me today. It's a constant battle sometimes. When it came to stand-up, I was afraid of the stage. I mean, imagine that. A guy who wants to be a comedian was afraid of the stage. And even though I mustered up the courage to do open mics a few times, I was completely terrified. I couldn't let the dream go, though. I think it was because I already adopted the identity, and it seemed to be working and doing something in my personal life so that I could continue to be that kind of guy. Plus, I was doing drugs, which made me better at it. If I gave all those things up, then I would be utterly destroyed. Like, what a waste of time. I worked hard for this identity. Everyone seems to like me. I'm funny. I just can't give it up and become like, what, unfunny while battling sobriety and stuck in NA for the rest of my life? Hi, I'm Nick and I'm an addict. Ugh. What a sad disposition. So I continued down this route, avoiding open mics because of fear, however, being funny enough around people where I could still pull off the persona of a comedian and living a lie pretending to be this active comic, and perhaps the people around me would think I'm worth something and original. I was willing to live that lie to achieve it. And that's when the self-deprecation came in. If I could brutalize myself with ironic jokes about my life, then I could continue to walk this road while still doing drugs and possibly, with hope, die before anybody finds out. I was actively thinking that, and it's not an exaggeration. And I started getting really good at the art of self-deprecation. Joke after joke came to me. People laughing while I was on speed only perpetuated this ability. And I was getting validation and rewards from my friends and strangers. Now, this is the most difficult part to tell. And I think it was because I was in a daze at the time when this was going on. Everything was rushing at me while having to fulfill this lie. So this required me to stay on my toes at all times. Remember, I'm going to die, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal to keep this up. I wasn't prepared for how much of this self-deprecation, coupled with the pseudo-comic persona I felt, was going to do to me. And I started believing everything that I was saying about myself. I started believing that it was true with no avenue of release. Though I can make friends laugh, there's only so much reward you're going to get from that, and it runs dry pretty quick. So the jokes became real when I wrote them on my couch. Silent and alone, high as no other. Eventually, the occasional prostitute would laugh, but that's a whole other story. I started becoming my jokes, and the damage of self-deprecation was taking its toll. Remember how I said I was going to die? I wasn't wrong, really. I just didn't understand that my death would be a rotting self-loathing from the inside out. Poking fun at yourself is one thing. We can all use a little bit of that art in our lives. Hyperize that art, and it's utter chaos. Couple that with a lifestyle of speed, and a life in the pit is where you end up. So where's the encouragement on all this? Should I tell you that you're not a loser and to think of yourself as worthy and great? I certainly will not. For all I know, you could be the biggest loser there ever was. And there are such people out there. And the point is, if you're going to realize that, then what should you do about it? I mean, aside from submitting to Christ as Lord, I see no reason why you can't just stay a loser. Though uncomfortable as it may feel, who really cares? All you are is a cosmic accident, and a loser by the world's standards and possibly yours too. Mitch Hedberg chose that route. Christ sought me and bought me. If I'm valuable at all, it's only because I'm made in God's image and therefore would have to walk in a manner worthy of such attributes. I myself am not worthy of anything, really, but Christ is, and He's worth it. Self-deprecation sucks you dry and tears you away from your Creator as you're scrounging for another self-help book that the next scientific study says could be dangerous, which only gives way to another author that tries to nuance the virtue so that they can be featured as a gift under the chairs of Oprah's studio audience or whoever the next goon who does that is. Christ's salvation completely renewed me. I no longer am as self-deprecative as before, though I'm still being sanctified and poking my belly fat is still funny. I have a purpose, a hope, which ends in a good death, and it's all rooted in God, with a different mind and a new way of life. So what about you, you loser?